for CEOs and millionaires. I've never seen my vision be more crystal clear. Look in the mirror, see the change in who I used to be. I kept going, knew success would come eventually. But ask about me back then, they said I wouldn't make it. Nowadays they doubt less and tend to ask for favors. Poetic music, that's realness, don't let them tell you different. And if you ever lost in doubt, then follow your intuition. These words of wisdom is for those who's trying to find their purpose. Don't be living just to die, cause only death is certain. I'm working hard so I can toast to my accomplishments. Cause see, I lost it all and I ain't been the same since. I'm more focused, more ambitious, more everything. Grew up with nothing, now I appreciate the finer things. I know it's real when at the shows they ask for autographs. And now they know the name, they ain't gotta ask.
Hey everybody, got another podcast from lovely Israel. Got an interesting one this time, something that's a little different than what I normally talk about, but I thought that it would be interesting in that sense of like something that is kind of on our minds, but not really addressed enough in the matter of fashion and the consumption of fashion and fast fashion in the way that it's structured today in society and how we are consumers and we're consuming way more even than we did in the 2000s, the 90s and things like that. And I have actually like a kind of a subject matter expert in fashion. I'll let Mai introduce herself and her background here shortly, but first off, thanks for doing this.
Hi, Ben. Thank you for having me. So my name is Mai. I'm a fashion designer. I've been in the fashion industry for around 14 years now. I've been mainly doing roles of fashion production, fashion management, the whole process of producing garments in the Far East. These days, in the past few years, I've been working for a startup that is actually fashion related. So I got to see the industry from both sides. I got to see the industry from within and from the outside look, working with all of the brands. I think the bigger issue here is not just our fashion consumption. It's actually a global situation right now where we have the climate change and consumption of everything is excessive. These days we're living 8 billion people on this planet. We're consuming way more than we should. In fashion, we see it all the time. Basically, what you have in your closet, you use 20% of it. What you consume is 5 times more than what you consumed like 10, 15 years ago. Things have changed with fashion. Like 150 years ago, you would get your tailor, they would make your garments custom made. You would get quality, you would get garments that are fitted to your size. In the past, I think maybe 20 years, it's begun to be a fast fashion. That means you take all the trends, you put them in production super fast. You get cheap materials. You get really low quality of pattern, of stitching, and those garments don't last. Like you can use them about like 4 to 5 times. It does cost cheaper, but you don't really use it. So it means you just take it, it's disposable, and then you gotta buy all over again. That means you lose money at the end of the day. You don't really get the benefit and the value from those garments.
Do you think people realize that? I would think that people realize the quality of the products that they're buying is not the best. But do you, with the way that we look at ourselves to be fashionable, it's a status symbol in some ways to have new things all the time. If somebody sees you having something on that, you know, for example, here in Israel, like people can tell that I have clothes that aren't from here that you can get readily available, and I get a lot of comments on them. Are we just as human beings programmed to want and have things and be in awe of others that have things that are different than us in that way?
That's a good question. I would have to say that even I would take it to a comparison to cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really need cell phones 20 years ago. We would manage fine without them. We wouldn't touch them. But these days, like my cell phone is like my left hand, my right hand, my mind. Everything I need is inside my cell phone. So we've been taught and we've been educated to need more clothes, to want more clothes. We don't necessarily need all of those. We were educated towards that. When you get something, it's like candy. You go to a store and you see all those candies and everything is like really cheap and you can get whatever you want and you can use it and the next day throw it away. And so you buy it, like you want to buy it. And these days you got Instagram, you got all those kids that want to look super cool and they want to get like a new garment every time. They want to get like a new outfit, a new look, and they would wear it. They would take pictures with it, and that's it. You cannot wear it again. That's it. Like, it's done its course.
This is a very odd question to ask, but has fast fashion gotten into the religious communities at all?
That's an interesting question. First of all, of course, I think as the world progresses, all of its communities has progressed as well. Maybe not in the same elevation, not in the same speed, but it has progressed. I can say that like religious communities, especially here in Israel, you got like branches of Zara, for example, that you got like more
conservative,
modest and conservative look that they shop there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So it is something that is, and also I think fashion as well has become like for women, especially in the last 10 years with all the Me Too and everything that's been going on. I think women has become more, the fashion has become more conservative.
Just do like that. Yeah, as long as you're like this close, it should be good.
Okay.
There you
So
go.
I'll get it a bit closer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you had to you've been in fashion for a while. We obviously have something to talk about here, but I want to know a little bit more about the history of fashion, like who, from what you've read and what you've studied, who were like kind of the first fashion icons of their time, and then how did that become to be like what it is today, basically? I would think that nobility probably had the means to get some of the finer textiles and as far as the products and the garments and things like that from across the world with colonialism. And they would have brought it back to their place and had people sew them very unique pieces of clothing. And then if you could get into those parts of society, then those would be trendsetters per se. And then after that, then it would slowly migrate down to the different demographics within society. Is that kind of a way to look at it, or is there something else to go about with the history of fashion and how that goes.
Yeah. So first of all, basically fashion started since humans started wearing clothes.
Okay.
So like back, let's take way back in ancient Greece, there was no patterns. There was like this simple square shape with a hole for the head, and you would like put it on like a huge cape, and you would go around with it. Basically, it was animal skin, some kind of fibers like really coarse wool or linen, things like that. With time, basically, fashion design started in France at the 1600s. That's when they started to import cotton and other materials from India through the silk lane.
Yeah.
So fashion started with building new patterns, building garments that will fit your body. They would dress up the whole, the French court and the aristocrats and this whole region. I think cotton was a huge change that elevated the whole garment industry.
And so what did people use before cotton as far as materials?
Yeah, they pretty much used whatever they can find, like skin, animal skin. You would eat the cow and you would wear its skin. Or you would eat the sheep and use the wool to manufacture some kind of clothing. It's a really long process to make a garment. You would have to grow the cotton, and then you would have to get it out and get fibers out of it. And from the fibers, you get the threads, and from the threads, you weave the fabric. After that, it goes on to some processes of dyeing, of curing the fabric, and after all of this, you cut and sew the actual garment at the end. So that is a really long process to make garments.
And then let's take it to more modern times. When did, I would think during the Industrial Revolution that there were a lot of changes in the fashion industry because of the production lines of being, so somebody would take a piece of one thing and then add it to another, and they would have a specific job, and you could streamline that and be able to produce more of the same product pretty efficiently overall. Obviously there would be, mistakes here or there, but in the grand scheme of things, let's say you had less than 5% that were messed up or whatever else. But when you can create volume like that, was that the first instance you would think we would consider fast fashion, and then like kind of moving forward was the Industrial Revolution?
Yeah, I would have to say that have been a very crucial in the tilting point. The Industrial Revolution has brought a lot of new techniques. They brought the whole past streamline that you can actually manufacture in mass production. Up until then, they were still, tailoring that would do custom made. I would have to meet with you, take your measurements, and create your suit. And from the 1900s, it actually became to mass production. Also because the population of the world has started to grow, and more people needed clothes. We always need clothes, we would always need clothes. That's why this industry is Right now, I think it's in its mannerism. It's like gone to the point that it's overproduced. But back then, it was just, just the start of everything. I would have to commemorate Coco Chanel for bringing a more day-to-day look for women, and that enabled for garments to be simplified. Because up until then, you would wear those harsh corsets and those huge skirts. And she came up with the idea that a woman could wear a suit, a tailored suit with like pants and a jacket. And it was more modern, more day-to-day, something you could actually travel with, something you can actually go places with. I could not play badminton with a huge skirt and like this big corset on me.
Yeah.
I think also the Second World War also brought more mass production. And that's when, all men went to war, and that made women stay behind and actually get inside the work cycle.
And I know that was a big part of it, and some of those women went away from the manufacturing and the production of not only clothes, but materials and things like that. In fashion today, what do you think the percentage of women that are still in the workforce as far as the supply chain is concerned?
Yeah. Basically, that industry has always been based on women and based on Africans picking the cotton. So that has always been like a minority group. These days, up until today, 80% of the supply chain are women.
And it's in a factory setting, or are these kind of solopreneurs where they're just grabbing stuff? They get like a work order of some kind, and then they just have to produce that and bring it to the next part of the supply chain? Or is it so much streamlined where...
Through all the supply chain, 80% are women through everything. I think this whole industry has been a bit not looked at, not standardized. It was not as organized as it should be. And up until today, it's pretty much a big mess. Because there are no regulations about how to produce, how much do we produce, what are the effects of what we produce, how we create everything we do in a sustainable way.
I mean, right now, I think, I just finished my MBA in Denver there, and we had a really...
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks. We had a really cool professor who was a supply chain manager for Coors beers. So he was really cool because he just retired. So he had like a ton of knowledge on that. Shout out to Professor Jack Buffington. But basically he was saying that the design aspect of the supply chain is taking more and more into account the end process cycle of a product now, on the materials that it's used. How could that material in the end be taken, a bunch of the same materials and either recycling it or I guess ethically throwing it away in some way, or understanding the process of the landfills or other things and how long things take to decompose, all that kind of stuff. I know that there's a lot of room for disruption, but it's like you said, these industries are basically not regulated in the same capacity as others because it's global, right? We have to think about globalization. And for many people, globalization was a great thing, but because it was bringing other countries out of cyclical poverty where they can be able to have a sustainable lifestyle in their own country. However, their value system and how they're governed as people and as a society don't have the same standards of ethics as the West does. Do you think that fashion deliberately moved and outsourced a lot of the supply chain to Asia, to other places because of that fact? So they didn't have to worry about the EPA and like the environmental issues that other countries were telling them not to worry, or you can't do that here anymore in this way. Do you feel that was deliberate in that planning process to move that stuff offshore?
Yeah, I would have to, let's go back like to the 1900s where, you had a lot of manufacturing in New York. New York used to manufacture probably around 70% of women's clothing and around 40% of men's clothing. And once pollution got to a really high point, they started to move it. They move it to the east. The east was really open for work agreements, and they wanted to get more work and to do things. So they started collaborating. So from then they moved everything to the east. So China is like back then it was the number one producer, manufacturer, still up until today. But today we can see it like sliding more to other places because China would rather be more of in a managing places. Not a lot of Chinese people would like to get into the garment and the textile industry because it's not a rewarding industry. So they right now it's like moved to Vietnam, to Cambodia, to Bangladesh. Bangladesh is like a huge place that manufactured these days. So yeah, it moved to the east, and you don't have to see the pollution in the West. You don't have to think about the factories. You don't have to see the factories. So you don't have a sense of what you're doing and how you're producing things. You're just thinking about your net profit. So early, like around 1990, fast fashion started. You could see Zara, you could see H&M, you could see ASOS, like building up, putting up a lot of selling points, a lot of stores opening up. They would get a lot of demand from the public to get more and more. Like back then, I can say 1600s, you would get a trend once every 100 years. These days, around 1900s, you would get a trend twice a year, like each season. Today, you get a trend each week. Each week, you get a new collection, you get something new to wear, you get that influencers on your Instagram, you look at it, you want to buy it, next week you can buy it. You just click and you buy it, and that's it. So those companies kept producing, kept doing things. There was the rise of synthetics fabrics.
Okay.
And that also impacted the whole industry because synthetics means you can put on everything you want and it will look great. It made the whole active wear available for you.
So like Nike, Lululemon, etc.
Exactly. You get like more comfortable, fitted clothes that you don't need to make darts in them. It's like going into the whole the pattern shape. Once you have something that is not elastic, you cannot really play with it. But today we have all those active wears that you can like put on something that it's really fitted on you. But that comes with a price. That comes with a huge price tag. These days, some would say the fashion industry is the second most polluting or the third most polluting on the planet. Making garments takes up a lot of energy and a lot of waste. Like imagine making a t-shirt. Just making a t-shirt, you need 2,700 liters of water to make those. To make a pair of jeans, you need 10,000 liters of water.
Wow.
So these days, when we don't have a lot of natural resources on the planet, I'm asking, do you want to wear the jeans or you want to drink the water?
Yeah.
We need to start deciding on how we use the natural resources on this planet. Still get like really nice, cool clothing, but try to make it more sustainable. Give value to our clothes, give value to ourselves, to what we wear.
But how do we make it more sustainable? What would need to change in the supply chain, in the raw materials, like the process of making these garments? Like what does that mean to be more sustainable?
So the whole supply chain is like really elaborated, and it touches a lot of fields along the way. So that means if we want to rectify everything and start doing things consciously and be aware of everything that we do, we need to take care of every step of the way. We need to take care of the soil. Once we grow cotton, it needs to be grown organically. We cannot use all those pesticides on the earth, on the soil. It just contaminates everything. It contaminates the soil. It contaminates the water. After that, we need to. I think in the design, in the initial design, we need to think how we make it a circular.
Just a product and a life cycle of a garment.
Yeah, the whole cycle should be conscious from the beginning to the end. Like if I would have to say that if I want to produce something from the beginning, I have to know that at the end of the cycle, this thing is not thrown to the garbage. It's not waste. It's something that we actually use after that, or goes back into the earth, or does something after that. Basically, these days, it's like a linear line. We produce something, and then we throw it, and no one knows where it is.
Right. All right, we're good. Yeah, I just have a camera that isn't a video camera. It's an actual like Nikon camera, and they have a stupid rule where they only allow you to film for 30 minutes. So I have to make sure that's
on.
It's
my good side.
Yeah. No, I understand what you mean in that sense, but I guess from my own personal experience in business, I'm going to say that we like to think that we are activists in making things better as a whole, as a society, right? But I think there's a lot of hypocrisy in the world, in a sense of, let's just take, for example, restaurants, you know, like when we walk around here in Tel Aviv, who's cooking in the back? Are they actually getting paid what Israelis regularly would be getting paid, right? There's a lot of people that are working in kitchens here, just like in other parts of the world. They might be here legally, they might not be here legally, but they're doing the grunt work, right? And in the end, we want quality, but at like a bargain price, right? That's just the nature of humans.
Exactly.
We want everything to be the top of the top without having to worry about how it got there, how we're wearing it, or how we're consuming it. And so I had that kind of thing happen to me, like in the food truck, where we're trying to get like the best quality meat, doing the best things for the customer and this and that, but they wanted everything to be under, at that time, like $10.
Exactly.
And you're just like, what dream world are you living on? Like, I have employees to pay. I have, I have expenses for this business. I've done the pricing. I know what everything costs and what it costs to run my business. And this is how much a shawarma with fresh bread, pita, and all that stuff costs.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so no trina on my truck, though. I know that'll disappoint a lot of Israelis, but no trina on the truck, just hummus and tzatziki sauce, like yogurt sauce. But I saw it firsthand, like how people were really, I'm gonna say like fake activists. In a sense of like, yeah, we care about this cause or whatever else, or even when you see like some of the social activism in like Black Lives Matter and this and that, and you're just like, okay, like what does that mean? Are you offering time? Are you offering some kind of incentives to make somebody else's life easier or better? Like, what are you losing in a sense of versus what you're gaining? It's very empty to just say whatever, right? Like we'll have, for example, in fashion, you'll have one of these factories in these countries have pretty horrible conditions for the working people there, and the building wouldn't pass code in any place in the West, but yet these places are being used to make the garments that we're wearing every day. And they've had instances in the past where some of these buildings just simply collapse on the workers.
Like in Dhaka, Bangladesh, exactly. 2013.
Yeah, exactly. And so
10,000 people died.
Right. And so with that, we think about how much we care, but like I'm just pushing back on a sense of like, if we're going to be stewards in our future, we have to take more agency in what we're wearing, how we're wearing it, and start to hold these corporations and also the politicians that allow these corporations to bring clothing into our countries more accountable, in a sense of, we have to know that this particular garment was made, through and through, like it's been observed in some capacity. And I know it's hard to do. We might need to create some kind of oversight, of some kind, international oversight, to ensure that products are made with ethics along the way, to include from the bottom all the way to the time that you're trying it on in the dressing room. It's a hard thing to do, but do you feel that the international community is ready for such a task and something that, like you said, is essential to our lives? I mean, fashion and clothing is an everyday thing, it touches our lives every day. Can we push forward, or are we just kind of foolish to think that things are going to change?
I would tell you from a personal perspective, after working many years in the industry, I would always push my suppliers to get better quality, to get the finest materials, to get the finest accessories in the most minimum wage possible. And each year I would get a demand from my fashion company to continue and to press more to get the best quality with really no reward. For me as well, as a fashion designer that worked in the industry, that had a team of 12 people, I would do budgets in millions of dollars, and I would get pretty much a very symbolic salary. Just like those, I wouldn't compare myself to the workers, but it was, you're not getting what you're putting in. You're not getting the value or the recognition of what you're doing. I think that the main issue is here that the solution should come from at least, I would say, three main lanes. The first one would be regulations. Governments and let's say the UN Climate Change Conference, which is the COP. It's not enough just to make those conferences. We need to actually follow up the regulations, make people own up to it, check that it is done, make standards, and follow through. Not just, meet up every year, get to some conclusions about how the future should look like. We should actually take action. There should be like this, global federation that decides, hey, I'm not attached to money. I'm not attached to revenues. I'm not attached to governments. I'm not attached to any of those. I'm seeing the greater good. I'm seeing what this planet needs. And right now, what the planet needs is to heal. Like we see it right now in COVID. I think COVID is just like a symptom of everything that's been going on here. Like what's actually been going on here is the planet is sick. The planet does not feel well. We don't feel well. The planet doesn't feel well. The soil doesn't feel well. Everything is like floating up. And we need to start to realize what we're doing here. Like we've been doing this for like 100 years. We've pretty much contaminated the whole planet within 100 years. Kudos to us. We've done it really fast. And now we need to start rectifying the situation by understanding that this is not unlimited resources of this planet. It has limited resources. I wouldn't say limited resources, but if we learn to circulate those resources, we will always have those resources because it will always been brought to us and gone back to the earth. And then it will always be a synergy inside this planet. Just like it's round, we should all do round and circular processes for what we're doing here. And we need to start to understand that. I think humanity is just now, in the past few years, starting to realize that. And I do know there's a lot of organizations and associations that are starting to build up and say, okay, we need to start being responsible for what we bring to the world. We cannot just bring stuff to the world and then throw it away like it's nothing. If we bring things to the world, we need to give it value. We need to use it. We need to use it in a responsible way and then bring it back to the earth with a blessing.
I mean, I'm in agreement with what you say. I just, like, for example, this federation that you were talking about, like, everybody has their own, like each country and down to the corporations and the individuals that run them have their own motivations on keeping things the same, right? So I was just playing devil's advocate while I was listening to you, thinking about what's the easiest way to kill an organization like that. And it would be to get people that are ridiculously annoying, ridiculously kind of have a more holistic approach to life to run these things, and they're easily drowned out. How do you get people that don't necessarily agree on anything, but agree on the soul of the planet and the land that we live on being an important aspect of our lives? You know what I mean? And I think that's what's funny about, like, for example, in the US, where you have ranchers, you have all these people that really love the land for what it is, right? And right now, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but there's it's a big problem going on with cattle and beef going on in the States, right? Where you have this oligopoly, right? That's what it's called, where you have a bunch of companies, the big four in cattle and in beef, that are running everything in that sense. And thanks to some of the YouTube videos that I watch, breaking points with Sagar and the folks there, because they've really been interviewing people that are in this industry. And so these corporations basically are saying that they're taking advantage of the fact that we've had inflation in the last year. So what they're saying is we have to cost adjust based on the raw materials and everything else that is going on, right? But when you only have 4 people that are producing a product or of consumption, you can kind of, without even talking to each other, kind of regulate price and see how much people are willing to pay. Like, you already know that there's going to be inflation, right? So you can ride that wave theoretically, and basically corporate profits have been gone through the roof because they've masked it under the prices of inflation to try to test the limits on people's spending. And they found that barometer, be like, oh, if it's $5 versus $6 versus $7, $6.50 is the right one. We only needed to push it up to like $5.50, but they're, for each product on a mass scale and volume, they're creating so much wealth for shareholders of these organizations. And I can only imagine it's the same in fashion, right? I guess the question is you mentioned regulation before as being like a big component of that.
That'll be the first one, yes. We'll get to the 2 other ones later.
So I guess, but the big thing is, like, with regulation, you need people that are in your corner to represent you in politics. Do you feel that because of what's happening, you're seeing the trends in fashion and other industries? Do you think that regular people have had enough and are going to start to run for politics and kind of create a different kind and challenge authority and what's going on right now in the world and the hierarchy and the world order that we have, in a sense of you can still make profit and still try to fix things along the way? Like, do you feel that there's a coming of this in the next 10, 15 years of people that are just tired of seeing like stuff floating in their rivers, like you can't drink this water, you can't do anything, you're sending stuff to Africa as aid of used clothing, and it literally just gets burned because there's just too much of it or whatever else, right? Do you feel that there's this next generation, these Greta Thunberg kind of people that are like growing up and slowly becoming adults? Are they just talk, or are they actually about action, from what you've seen and what you've heard within your own industry?
When I started this, getting into the hashtag area, there was not a lot of reading materials or path that has been created for this. I think the climate change conference and the Copenhagen summit has been really advocate about this and been doing the best it can to like make progress and change things. They have this really huge claim towards those companies like H&M and Zara to start being more conscious about everything. They have made a promise, like Zara and H&M. They have made a promise that all of their garments will be sustainable. Zara said up until 2025, everything will be recycled and sustainable. H&M said up until 2030, everything will be 100% recycled. But when we look at those statements, they say conscious, join life, circular, organic, and all sorts of words that don't really necessarily have some kind of standardization in the world. There is no parameters that you can say, okay, we can take you up to this and be accountable to that. So what they're doing is basically they're trying to, for me at least, I feel that it's a bit of an upfront mirage of showing how we do want to progress towards things, not necessarily growing towards those things. Because when you say recycle, if you take polyester and recycle it, that's like the worst process you can make and do for polyester, because you take those synthetic fabrics and you follow them with all those recycling processes that you dissolve the fabric, and that process makes little microplastics get thrown into the ocean. And at the end of the day, the fish eat those. We eat the fish. We wear the polyester. So that means you get plastics inside your body, outside your body. You breathe it. And in terms of all those factories that are far away from us and we don't see them, and they're basically placed in a dome of this really huge pollution. You cannot see the air. Like, I was in China back in 2010. There was no air. There was no sky. I would look up and I would search for the sky and I would just see like this huge dome of pollution. At the end of the day, my face, my body, everything was black. Like I was in a coal mine or somewhere on the planet. And their conditions basically are the worst because they're the worst because they're not treated as humans and as the human wisdom that we can use. They're just sitting there working on their sewing machine or the cutting room, and they're being judged by the amount of work that they're doing. They're not being judged for their creative ideas or things that they bring to the world. They're just sitting there and they need to produce work per hour, per day, per month. And at the end of the day, they get like $7 per month, and that's their salary. And they sit in front of the sewing machine for 8 hours a day. Imagine like someone would send their son, who's like 12 or 13 years old, and instead of educating themselves, you just sit and you do the work of a machine, and you get rewarded and judged as a person doing a machine's work.
You bring up a good point as well. Can you maybe talk a little bit about automation and how that's affecting the supply chain? Like these people, like you're saying, like they're part of that system, but they're being utilized in the absence of machinery that could probably do it in that best way possible. They still have an edge in some way based on something like that, but with AI, with automation coming and robotics and things of that nature, how do you think that's going to affect the supply chain in the future? And do these people have a leg to stand on once these companies, because you know they're investing in this stuff to cut down cost and labor cost? What's your take on that? Do you think it'll ever go to like almost a fully automated supply chain in fashion, if they can do it, first of all? And secondly, is that, what do we do with those people around the world that this was their livelihood? Like, do we figure out something else for them, or what's the incentive basically to keep these workers working in that same fashion for the companies?
The funny thing about it is the fashion and the clothing making industry is still the same.
Yeah.
People are still sitting in front of a sewing machine, sewing those garments.
Why do you think that is? Why hasn't this industry been disrupted by the technology boom that so many other places have felt?
I think it goes back to the whole perspective of that industry, that it's a low-tech industry. It hasn't been getting the focus that it needs to actually like rise up from where it stands. There are innovations, but they're very minor, and it takes a lot of time to implement them and to make them actually work for everyone. Because at the end of the day, there is a village somewhere in China or in Bangladesh or Vietnam that takes all the kids there, or some adults as well, and they just sit there and they sew your garments, and they don't know much. It's basically it's developing countries that hasn't been given enough funds or education to start making a more conscious processes towards the future.
Do you feel that, because there's been studies out there that talk about this specifically, and that the world as a whole is coming out of this deep cyclical poverty, like when you're talking about where you can't sustain your own lifestyle. Some say that the fashion industry and other places have actually brought these people out of even worse conditions than what they had, because they have an opportunity, because maybe they have self-worth and purpose now working this job. As demeaning as it might be to us in the West in certain respects, this has actually created a positive atmosphere for these people. Do you agree with that in certain ways, or do you think it's bullshit?
I think we can do better. Okay. At 2022, I think we can find new and creative ways of giving those areas, those developing countries, tools to start rehabilitating their life and getting more out of life. There are automation for a lot of processes that we need. We have high tech that, these days I can actually form a pattern in my computer, send it to the mill. The mill just laser cut the fabric, and at the end of the day, there's a person sitting there sewing the garment. So some processes does need to be changed.
And do you think that people have the want to make that change, or do you feel that it's going to have to come from activism? And like we've seen countless and countless times, like industries, corporations, even government cooperation with corporations, it's not in their interest to change. Like why would you feel that it would change now when we haven't changed in 100 years, 50 years?
It's like every change in life. I think you're in that cycle and it spins really fast. And imagine in the fashion industry, it spins even faster, because if you take out garments every week, that means you're working super hard to get those garments every week put out for you to wear. And to stop that cycle for a minute, take a step back, look at everything that we've been doing up until today, and form a new setup, a new architectural plan of how do we do this whole cycle in a different way. Mm-hmm. But it means we actually need to stop it. So in that way, I would have to say that COVID has brought some blessing to our lives, because we did needed to stop flying, stop driving, stop working so hard. We've been sitting at home, basically most of us, for a year, either working from home or, working less, starting to appreciate life and starting to look at everything around us and understanding that we're just running after our own tails and not making any change about it. So I think this time those times are really special because I see more and more people getting more conscious about fashion and about our consumption. And not just our consumption in fashion, about everything, even the food we eat. Basically, research say that around 30% or 40% we throw away. We don't use it. In garments, it's the same. We throw it away. We don't use it. So why do we need, as humans, to accumulate so many things that we don't use, that we don't need, that we're not touching it, and we're just basically throwing money away? And these are good times to say, okay, I'm gonna be more conscious and more economical about myself, and start taking up things to myself that I actually need, and not things that will just lay in my closet and will do nothing and will just get like dust all over it.
Yeah, no, you bring up a decent point. I mean, there's been statistics that show, like, as let's say, for example, in LA, like when people weren't driving as much, you could actually see LA really well.
Yeah.
Stuff
I can
like
hear
that.
the birds from outside my house now.
I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but sure.
It's a good thing.
No, it's definitely bring up some valid points, and I think we have to, as a society, continue, like you said, to be better, to expect more. Like, especially these corporations, right? Like they get to be in the West. They get to live and have their headquarters out of our places, right? That's cool. But
it is cool when you're sitting in Sweden and everything around is green and nice, and you talk about being conscious about your consumption and conscious about fashion. When you make billions of dollars every year, H&M just burned a few years ago 4.3 billion garments that they didn't have anything to do with them, and they just took it up and burned them. 4.3 billion worth of items. That's crazy.
right.
And what do you do with all those things? You just throw it away. At the end, you see all those videos. It gets piled up as mountains in Africa,
Right.
like mountains of artificial clothing that no one uses.
Does high-end fashion do a better job of creating not just more quality of product, but are they thinking more about the exit of a product cycle in a better way than the fast fashion industry?
High fashion, from being high fashion to begin with, is more sustainable because that means I create a garment made to order. I don't create anything until you order that garment. And the whole process of creating those garments is very sustainable, since there are people that sit down and sew it. Sometimes you even hand sew it. You don't even sew it on the machine. So that is sustainable. And you get the best fabrics and you get the best stitching. And those things last for years.
Why hasn't there been a kind of a middle class where, in regards to fashion, right, where it's not fast fashion, it's not high end, but there's something in between that it won't fall apart within 3 washes?
Yeah.
Like, why hasn't there been some kind of medium fashion of some kind?
That's a very good question. question. There are some that does that. Like I would have to say Zara has like the upper scale, the Massimo Dutti, and like H&M has the upper scale, which is like COS. So you do pay more for the garments. Basically, it's the same factory, it's the same shape, it's the same pattern, but the fabrics are different. The stitching are different. The whole finishing of the garment is different, and it could last you for a few years. I think in that term, when you look at fashion, we do want to enjoy the trends. We do want to enjoy like the candy that's brought to us, and we want to enjoy it. But those candies can be made more consciously as disposables. If you actually use them once or twice, maybe we should manufacture them to begin with, to be used once or twice. And then you get those classics. You get those non-seasonal outfits that you can use for years. You can use them from really good fabrics. You can use them for years. It will create for you a value for yourself of what you wear. Because I don't like wearing something and after a wash it gets all twisted or it gets a lot of, like little...
the lint balls.
Lint balls inside them. It's really upsetting. You feel like you've been hacked. Like someone like fooled you. You buy something, you're super excited, you put it in the wash and everything gets tumbled around and comes out totally different.
If you were queen, the Malka of fashion, and you had the magic wand.
Oh wow!
Where do you start with the the change in the process? Right? Do you start with the fashion houses, like as you were talking about stuff that goes out of fashion and back into fashion? One thing that I find particularly annoying about some of the fashion houses is that they will take a trend. Let's just say it's a checkered like design of some kind within.
I could stop?
No, you're good. A checkered kind of pattern of some kind. But instead of it being checkered, they will offset it to be a diamond. You know what I mean? And that is the new trend. They really do much for the design of a difference, right? But you can tell that this thing that's just offset by this much is this year's fashion versus, let's say, 3 to 4 years ago. How do you get fashion houses to cooperate? They talk a good game, but when you look at the patterns and the recognition of the designs and those people coming together for the new spring and fall, the shows and things like that all over the world, Paris, New York, etc., they're not actually practicing what they preach. Like, what would you say to them first, in a sense of creating still the creativity aspect of fashion? And I think that's what people love, and to be able to go out and feel like $1 million, like with whatever you have on, but still having some kind of nuance of rhythm to the seasons and be able to bring something back to add to a collection, maybe a small item here or there, but you have that skirt that you bought that was quality that you could bring back out, where you're saying you're utilizing your full wardrobe instead of the 20%. Like, what would you tell them? Like, what would be a plan like that?
When I started understanding that fashion design is something that I want to do in my life, I was so excited about those huge brands. They were like the light, the biggest light that shines, because high fashion means art formed in a practical way. And I would be at awe of that. And as time progresses, I understood that it's basically an industry that you wear your t-shirt, and you could wear it like as a v-neck or a round neck, or you can, change the pocket position. It doesn't mean that much. At the end of the day, today, we all wear pretty much the same things. We look all alike. It's not the artistry that was before when I started. It's not the glamorous thing that I thought it would be. I think high fashion and fashion in general should have a structured process. The process of production is the same. It's not a different process. And we should standardize that process of production to making it a circular economy, as they say today. The whole process should be changed. And fashion houses need to understand that a portion of your collection should be timeless. Elegance and our view on garments should be timeless. That means I can wear that beautiful jacket, I could wear that beautiful pair of jeans, I could wear that beautiful button shirt for many years and enjoy it for real. And to that outfit, I can add those snacks. I call them snacks of the trends, because you eat it and throw it away and then you feel a bit sick. That's the same as all the garments that are trends. They're really yummy, they're nice, they're fun, but at the end you get a bit bummed out of them.
I know what you're saying. Like I think it's so much easier being a guy in fashion because there's some just basics that you need, right? You have I will spend good amount of money on shoes in a sense of having
shoes are important. They hold your back.
They try. It's a bigger back every day. But just in a sense of the quality of the shoe, and I know that theoretically it's probably, like you said, like made in the same shops in the same places as the fast fashion stuff is, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, I know that like if I bought a pair of shoes that was a couple $100, I don't have to buy another pair of shoes for years. So that's my kind of take on it. And like you said, you accessorize accordingly. So like I was starting to get more customized suits and customized like dress shirts and things like that.
Amazing.
And so with that, they're form fitting for me. And then you accessorize with watches, with other things that you know that you have. That I honestly, I'm an unusual consumer. I might spend, in theory, maybe $1,500 a year on clothes. It's unreal. Like, and that's new running shoes, new everything, right? Like in a sense of that. And I know that other people spend way, way more, but like
way more. Yes.
I look at it from maybe it's because of how I grew up and not having a lot, that sometimes we forget the way it was before. And so at least educating people around me, or even if I were to have a family at some point, you know, like wear it till it falls apart, you know, because just because it's got a little stain on it here or there, whatever, you can use it in different ways, right?
Yeah.
You can use it as a rag for working on the car or something else for whatever, right? Like just take...
These days you can even swap it. Like if you have something in your closet that you don't really like, maybe you've worn it like once, there are like a lot of like groups, Facebook groups or all sorts of groups that you can like swap between friends, and or even like secondhand stores that you sell your garments there and they sell it to other people.
But don't you think that that's just the one step above where they just start taking it as like whatever they can't sell theoretically would be like donations, and it just gets in that big pile like in Africa, like you talked about. It's like I understand what you're mentioning in that sense, and that's, I mean, at least it's a step above just literally throwing it in a trash or throwing it into a recycle place and then they do whatever. But it's, I don't know if it's
I think maybe to begin with, when we see such a low price on an item, you look at the item and you say, I can afford it. Why not? I'll do something with it because it doesn't cost that much. That's like the basic general mood of humans these days.
Right.
And you have to look at that item and say, if I'm picking that item up, I'm gonna pick the next one and the next one and the next one. And let's think about all those items sitting in my closet that those prices are accumulating, because if this one costs $20 and it's I have a craving like at least 10 times a week, so that's $200 that I'm just putting in my closet, doing nothing with it.
Right.
So to begin with, I think you need to like ask yourself, do I need this? Does this makes me happy? Am I gonna use it the year after that? Am I going to use it at all?
Do you feel that the fashion industry is playing, like I look at everything, and there's a good book written by Scott Galloway, and he talks about the big four, like, you know, Facebook, Amazon, Google, and companies like that. Apple, Apple, where, let's just face it, like brands kind of define us, and what you can afford kind of puts you in your socioeconomic status, right?
Exactly.
And so with that, you know, instead of, he says, for example, instead of asking or praying, right, we just Google something. Facebook and other companies are kind of preying on our human tendencies in a sense of connection and involvement and things like that, right? But counterintuitively, they use that to give you a more nuanced look on the internet and how you're communicating with people, right? Through ads and through everything else. How do you get the fashion industry to stop playing on, especially women, their self-esteem? In the way that, like, there's so much psychology involved in the way something is cut and what you can afford and how things are going to look on you. How would you go to some of these fashion houses, for example, and ask them to take it down a notch as far as like the self-awareness of women in general, but as a society as a whole on fashion and how that plays with our minds and what we as people want to feel as we're putting on garments?
As humans, we need to feel our value from within, not from external materials or external products. We're having a hard time to do it because we live in the physical world and we look at everything around us, and it does makes us feel better about ourselves when we purchase something that we think for a minute could like elevate us and make us feel better. This has been a huge factor and a huge problem since, I don't know, like the 1950s maybe.
For sure.
Where you get all those magazines, and today you get all those influencers on Instagram, and everyone has their Chanel bag and their Gucci garment, and you look at it and you say, I want that, I need that, not want that.
Yeah.
When you actually don't need it, it's just been shoved down your throat as something that you really need to make yourself in a certain status in this world. it's a very hard conflict, because I say, when you're like rich enough, you don't give a fuck. Like you can go outside like a hobo and that'll be great. Everyone would say, oh, that's a great style you got on. But when you don't have those things and you do want to step in the levels of your social status, you feel that you do need to purchase those things.
It's exactly what you're talking about, because inherently we are still animalistic in nature as humans, and we're trying to show that we systematically are worth creating another life with, right? And so we're overtly showing, like a perfect example is like when somebody doesn't have an iPhone and you see the green SMS instead of the blue one.
Yeah.
Like inherently, like it shouldn't make a difference, but subconsciously we've been programmed to be like, it's a green screen. And even Apple is playing on that in that way. Like they're not as good as you because they're with a Samsung. It's like, it's literally a communication device, but subconsciously they've kind of programmed us to be like, oh, you don't have iMessage, loser, in some way. But just little things like that, or like the simple fact that like, having an Apple Watch or a Fitbit or something else, right? You are inherently by buying these products, and these are products of want, not necessity, that you're showing the world inherently like, mate with me. I got enough, or at least the illusion of it, right? Because so many people are in debt and they're just buying these things because they like them per se, and they think they might make them whole in some capacity or what have you. But you don't really know. And I think that's maybe the problem with fast fashion, is it gives the illusion of being there, and you're not, right? Like, oh, she's so chic, she's so doing whatever, right? Or the guy too, like, oh man, look at that shirt or this and that, and it looks like good right now, but that person might not wear that but one or two more times before they like take it.
It won't look good the second time.
Yeah,
or the third
after
time.
The wash, after the process of everything, right?
Also, as a fashion designer, I can notice
you probably
the differences in the pattern and the stitching and how it looks like, and you understand what is quality and what is not. I feel that going back to what you asked about the high fashion industry, is to start giving value to the garments that we wear. Just give it the respect. Give your body the respect of what you're putting on. We're basically wearing clothes throughout our lives every day, and we're putting plastics on ourselves every day. So you can be like this huge, nutritious advocate, and you eat all healthy, and you do yoga, and you take care of yourself, and you drink. You don't choke. You drink. You drink a lot of water throughout the day, and at the end of the day, you put plastic on yourself. So how do you take care of yourself if you're putting plastic on yourself?
That's a shout out to all the vegans, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's it's gonna be interesting in the next couple of years if we can just hold people, but then obviously institutions accountable in that sense. I wanted to chat a little bit about what I think is a little bit of the future, in a sense of like what we're growing into in Web 3.0, what people are calling the metaverse and other things, right? As we are becoming more and more...
Maybe we'll take a quick break.
You want a break?
Yes.
Fine, we can do a break. All right, we'll talk about the metaverse when we get back. Yeah, so you're talking about the digitization of our world and some of those things that are happening where, let's say, for example, in apps on our phone or in video games, we are allowed to purchase certain things about the experience that we're involved with, let's say in a soccer game or something like that on the PlayStation, you're able to purchase maybe a customized jersey of some kind to make it more unique for your experience. You have companies like Roblox that are really into that digitization of the internet and what we're doing day to day with kids in that sense. A lot of parents obviously know what I'm talking about with Roblox. Their kids are probably spending money on that every day, almost, I would say. So you're starting to see that trend go. But obviously, as we go further into this reality, the virtual reality and augmented reality, we're going to create our own, and as we know, our own persona within that field. Obviously, there was a lot of things in video games and other stuff like that where we were able to purchase different kinds of clothing and other things like that. Do you think this, I mean, obviously it's definitely more environmentally friendly to be able to create this persona online per se, on like how you're perceived and what you're wearing and things like that. Can you maybe talk a little bit about what you've seen with the metaverse 3.0, Web 3.0, whatever you want to call it, in the nature of fashion and the industry itself, and maybe some pros and cons on how that's working out in the industry?
Yeah, so the fashion industry has been making roughly about 150 billion garments every year, which we already know most of them get thrown away. And I think COVID has pretty pushed the online shopping, the online shopping experience. H&M, for example, closed a lot of stores throughout the world, and they're getting more into the online arena.
For those that don't know, what does getting into the online arena mean?
It means that instead of going to a store and buying your clothes, we shop our clothes these days online, which is pretty much a big tackling mission when you don't know the brands that you shop in and you don't know how it's going to look like. Is it going to fit you? They'll ship it to you and then you get it and it looks completely different from the photos that you've been seeing on the model on that website. So these days, with Facebook launching Meta, and a lot of people are talking more about the metaverse, which is basically a 3D environment. That means a digital environment that we all could live in. And in that digital environment, we can interact, we can connect, we can play games, we can do like Zoom meetings where I put my avatar and you put your avatar, and we have like this whole huge meeting together.
Where you can pick your clothes basically for the meeting?
So for the meeting, yeah, you can pick your own clothes. I can come with my Gucci bag and my Nike shoes. And basically today I can actually purchase them. It's called NFTs, which is a token that gives you the ownership of that particular item. That means you own the item in the digital world. It doesn't exist in the real world, but you actually buy it and you own it. You own that Gucci bag in the digital world. And that is enforced with the blockchain, and blockchain is the recorded transactions. That means no one can touch what you own in that digital world.
She's referring to like smart contracts and ledgers that are online, and so it's a bunch of databases around the world that are connected, and it gives you, think of if an artist only made 5 paintings in that time frame, that's taking that concept of the limited edition kind of series of things, but in a digital world. So if Chanel made exclusively only 10,000 NFTs for a Coco Chanel clutch that you could put on Zoom, there's scarcity in the product. You could actually buy that and you'd be one of the only 10,000 people in the entire world that would have it, which creates demand, which creates a bunch of things. So it's going to be very interesting in the next couple years, like how this all plays out. This
already even started. This is basically out in the market. There's been a lot of Birkin bags that were sold roughly between 20 to 50K as NFTs, and you get it out there as your own digital Birkin bag. Even Gucci has sold to a web game called Roblox.
Yep.
The funny thing about it is that they sold the NFTs in a higher price than a real Gucci bag. Like the real Gucci bag cost $3,400 and the NFTs cost $4,000.
But don't you feel like there could be some people taking advantage of other people? Like why? I mean, I know a lot of people are asking, like, why would I buy something that's not a physical thing? You know, like to show off in a digital world.
I think in these days, when you put yourself out there in social media and you get dressed for the social media, you get dressed for the Instagram photo, you're already in the digital world. You're there. So now they're saying, okay, you're in the digital world. Let's get you accessorized for that world. I think for fashion companies, that could be a really nice outlet to increase their revenue, because I think in the industry has pretty much maxed out itself. We cannot produce anymore. I highly support regulations to stop the excessive manufacturing of garments. And this allows them to create some kind of satisfaction with like new garments, with new trends. The users can actually enjoy something new that they put on themselves and they post it on social medias or games that they play. And you don't really need to have that item produced in a raw material state. You can just have it as a digital dream or digital look that you have.
Do you think people could be just as addicted with their digital persona as they are with their personal physical persona?
From what it looks right now, it's going to be hectic because according to Morgan Stanley, the NFT sales is supposed to go up to $22 billion by 2050. I can say that Dolce & Gabbana has sold like 9 NFTs in an auction for $9 million. Nike has bought this company to enable it to be in the digital world and to merge the culture and the gaming together. And their sales are also up this year by 18%. So that market alone is more than $200 billion.
Just like everything, first person to take the risk is going to reap the rewards. Like, are you already seeing trends in the fashion industry on like who are some of the people taking the most risk in the metaverse and reaping the rewards?
I guess we'll find that out in the next couple of years. They bought a lot of apes on as NFTs, if you know that story. there's a lot going on there. I pretty much don't really understand if I buy that Gucci bag, where am I going in the digital world with that bag?
Yeah, for sure. And then, obviously there's been some recent buzz in the public markets with companies like Rent the Runway going public. And do you feel that they actually have some momentum in like some of the trends that you're talking about with the secondhand stores and being able to borrow basically something for that one night that you might need it to be able to feel the way that you do, not actually having to pay for it, but for one night, and then somebody else could actually wear that? Do you think that's a viable option, just given the sheer volume of differences in I'm sure they cater mostly to women, so let's just using women as an example.
We're talking about the physical world now, right?
Correct. Yeah. Maybe they have Rent the Runway in the metaverse.
Maybe I'll rent a Birkin bag in the digital world.
Right.
Yeah.
So is that a better example of maximizing the effort to reduce waste, in a sense of the borrowing, in that sense of the clothing in that way, given that females have such different body types and everything else? Is that a popular...
Not only females, all humans have different body types.
Well, I was referring just because of the business model of what they have, in a sense, and catering probably to upwards of 90% women clients.
The fashion business mostly approaches to women. I think women, in a sense, need to feel more like peacocks around around the world. That we need to dress up more and we need to show our femininity. It is changing. I do feel like it is changing, and it's getting to be more flexible in the way that we balance ourselves between humans. I do feel that if you have this, all those goods, all those products, and you can rent them out and you can take them, it's already there. Someone has already produced them. So it's a great sustainable way of using something that has a great high value, and you don't need to commit to it. You don't need to own it, to put it in your home. It's like all those WeWork places or the Airbnbs. It's the whole concept of not owning everything that is physical in this world. You don't need to hold it or to purchase it to be your own in order to enjoy it.
Especially like a depreciating asset. Because once you buy something, it's losing value already. And clothes, being that it goes from whatever that purchase price was to basically zero.
Yeah.
I mean, most people don't make too much money selling their clothes secondhand, right? It's not like a vehicle where it slowly depreciates, or, in that sense of 5 to 7 years, or like machinery in that way.
Yeah, it's more of an ethical a business model that says, I'm here to try to circulate everything that's going on and not to get it thrown away or burnt or just washed away as something that is not usable.
Right. I kind of want to touch base to kind of round out the conversation on what can an individual do from a daily, weekly, monthly sense in how they organize their life to be more sustainable, whether it's the maximizing of their closet to the cycling of their clothes in a meaningful way, the purchasing. Let's take like the life cycle of a product and how it's in your life and how it leaves your life. Maybe give some tips on how to maximize that potential of the garment industry in that sense. Yeah. And then from the time you purchase something all the way to the time you get rid of it.
I think first of all, it's awareness. to understand that your $20 t-shirt was made by so many people, it's been gone through so many processes, and at the end it reaches you and you buy it for $20, but this has gone through across the world. Like it's been in the US, and then it's been in China, and then it's gotten back to you, and all of that circle got to you just to wear that t-shirt. So we do need to give value to what we have. When you understand all the masses of the work that's been put into what you're purchasing, I think you'll get to a more conscious place to understand that you want to respect your body, and you want to respect the craft of that item that you purchase. So I feel that it is hard to let go of those trends, but it is achievable. It's like going on a diet. It's like going, not really a diet because I don't like that, but it's a change in perception. It's a change in how we look at everything we consume. So we can buy things that are ethically made, that made out of organic cotton. Start looking at the labels. Start looking at what you're actually purchasing. What is it? What is it made of? If it's made of polyester or PET, do I need it? Do I really want it in my life? Do I want to put plastic on me? I don't know. All of those things need to come into consideration of what we bring into our home. Like everyone goes, these days, we all try to clear out the clutter from our life, from our desks, from our closet, from everything that we have. If we don't use 80% of our closet, why keep stacking it with more things? We don't need all those things. Like, think twice before you purchase something. That will really help you also to get your budget right. Like if you put more money on a certain item, but you're gonna use it for many years, so the cost per wear reduces, and you actually enjoy something for many years. So that's one of them. I think also we've touched a little bit before on the psychological aspect. If we put nice fitted garments on ourselves, mm-hmm. It will make us more productive. It will make us more vibrant, more accomplished. We get the better version of ourselves. It's like going to the gym. You're not going to the gym with your with a suit. You're going to the gym because you want to get the maximum results. So you put leggings on, and mm-hmm. you put like a dry fit t-shirt, and you put your trainers, because you want to get the maximum results, right? So if you want to get the maximum results from yourself, you need to put on yourself stuff that makes you feel good, stuff that makes you feel happy about them.
And so I guess now I'm thinking about the cycle that you're talking about now. Would you think that we need to maybe have more of a template to, or are there things online that people can look at to maybe build a wardrobe, for example, of high quality things with accessories and other stuff that will make you stand out, but will also last longer, and those cyclical patterns that we have in our product cycle within our closet, to be able to maximize, like you were talking about, like the price per wear, but getting rid of stuff that we know that is just going to be, like in the long run, it's going to have a shorter shelf life, like literally.
Yeah.
So like underwear, socks, things of that nature, that we know are going to go pretty fast because we wear them more regularly. But things like bags, things like the accessories, shirts of a higher quality that we know that are going to last a little bit longer to accentuate like what makes you feel good about yourself. Is there some place online that you know of that people can go and look and see like, oh, this is awesome. Like not only from an organizational standpoint, like to see everything that you have, because a lot of times we have it in a closet and we forget about even what we own, but to maximize organizationally, but then also creating kind of a cycle, a pattern of like, okay, this stuff is getting older. I know that I can wear these jeans periodically and rotate them rather than wearing one or two all the time. And then it's less waste because I bought 3 to 4 of the same thing that I really like and I know I'm going to wear anyway.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips on or guidance on that in that sense, or what you do for yourself in your closet?
The happy news, the good news about it is that there are more and more brands that are conscious and sustainable and uses really conscious production line for everything that they do. They use organic cotton. They use all the process is taken care of. I could put, if we can put at the end some kind of links.
We'll put links and everything, whatever you think of. Like
they're a really nice. They're a really nice website that that gathers under it all the sustainable brands that you have throughout Europe and the U.S. They're not just sustainable. Some of them are conscious and sustainable, and some of them are like websites that you can rent clothes.
Right.
That you can take clothes if you're like going, you're going to a wedding or you're going to some event or a black tie event, and you wanna rent something out. So you can pick it up. There's a lot of those in the UK. So there are a lot of things that you can do for your closet, and your closet will enjoy it, and you will enjoy it. I'm not saying right now go like 100% sustainable, because I know it's not logical. I don't do it. It's really hard to get into that place until the industry changes its whole take on that. It will be very challenging to move to that next level. But for right now, I'm saying try to incorporate classics into your closet. Pay a bit more. Those garments have value. That good fabric that you put on your body and you feel good with it. It cools you down in the summer. Some heat you up in the winter. It has value. So notice that, and you can afford to pay a bit more, because at the end of the day, you're not losing money, you're actually gaining money. If you continue to purchase things in a really low price and you just stack them up in your closet, I recommend you right now to go to your closet, open the door, and see everything that's going on there. Put aside everything that you're not using and try to think, how much does all of this worth?
Yeah.
How much did I spend on all of this and I'm not using it?
That's a good one. I personally, every year I go through my closet, and if I haven't worn it in a month, like within the last month.
Month is harsh.
Yeah.
That's a strict view.
Well, I keep about, besides suits and like shirts and stuff like that, like collared shirts, I keep about 3 to 4 weeks of clothes. Like I could go somewhere and pack and I won't have to wash clothes. That's my general rule. So,
That's great.
But my closet is empty when I leave.
You're very strict. You're stricter than me. I do it like once a season.
Yeah, but I'm a guy in a sense, right? Like if I'm not wearing like professional clothing, it's like t-shirt, jeans, collared shirt maybe to go out, but it's over jeans and stuff that I normally wear anyway. So you can mix and match and kind of figure out like what your style is, but like within your closet kind of had that casual, business casual, like really professional look. Yeah.
You've said something that is really interesting, your style. I think the more we understand ourselves and our style, I think that the things that we purchase are not that different. We have pretty much the same taste on things, and we do have the things that we love. And when you understand those things that you love, you can spend a bit more money on them and enjoy them for many years.
Yeah, I remember distinctly like knowing people that had hand-me-down bags, like hand purses and things like that from their parents or even their grandparents. Like imagine getting like a Louis Vuitton trunk.
I would love that.
Yeah. But it's just one of those things.
Anything vintage I would love.
Right.
Yeah.
You can find this stuff like another place, and it's like really cool, like decoration even for your house. If you're not using it to like actually put stuff in, to have a bunch of those like trunks. And that's how, for people that don't know, Louis Vuitton started as a trunk making company from carriages. And so they would ban these leather boxes, like basically to put all your luggage in as you were traveling. And it just slowly became one of those things of synonymous with quality. And then they just kind of morphed into what they are today with the bags and with the scarves and really taking the highest quality of garments out there and producing and designing things that have stood the test of time, honestly.
That's a good point. I think maybe high-end companies can get into their huge warehouses where they have a lot of things stocked up as museum exhibitions and start to take it out to the public. Mm-hmm. Those are things that were made in the best quality possible. And start selling them. It's already there. The products are already there. Even rent them out if it's a bit of a problem for them to sell it.
It's a physical token. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, physical token. That's a good terminology.
It just seems like art to me. But no, it's and so organizing your closet, getting that out, and then what tips do you have on getting rid of stuff, like let's say like for example in Israel or in the US, like what are some places where you can either give that stuff away or at least know that it's going to the right place to get disposed of properly?
That's a huge issue. It is.
Okay. Sorry to open up that can of worms, but
let's continue with the H&M example where they encourage their customers to bring back garments to go to recycling. Mm-hmm. So you can give those fashion companies your garments, you get like this discount for your next purchase. Which is pretty much, it's pretty ironic because you're saying basically just let's swap this one for a new one and continue to shop.
Right.
And we do hope they get recycled. And even if they do get recycled, it's a small portion of it actually gets to be recycled. I think people can... First of all, the most sustainable thing you can do is to use the things you own in your closet because it's already there. Secondly, there are a lot of groups that can swap between them. We've talked about it earlier, that you can like give someone else, hey, this is a size small, and people would swap it between themselves.
Is there any good websites for that, or is it like, for example, Facebook Marketplace, or like what's the best website or place out there like digitally where you can post clothes that are lightly worn that you just are not into anymore for somebody else? And
there are a lot of groups on Facebook.
Okay.
That can swap between them. It depends on the country. Like each country, at the end of the day, that garment needs to reach to you. So I don't know if we open like this group that we want to swap, and you're in the US and I'm living in Australia. I don't know if the logistics of swapping that would actually be helpful for the planet.
Right.
It's not that of a good idea, but if it happens like within the community that you're based in, or you have those secondhand stores that you can go and put your things there, and they would sell it on. It should happen in a more regional area.
Sure.
To be really sustainable.
Got it. Yeah, they have stuff like that in the States where a lot of people, they will donate to, you can have like Goodwill or other thrift store basically, where they organize it by size and everything else. But I'll be honest, I think a lot of the stuff that gets donated, obviously they have to go through it and make sure that the quality is there or not enough to put it there, but you don't really know. It's kind of like you are dealing with an inventory that in the blind. You're hoping that somebody buys it because you're getting it for free, but you're selling it for a couple dollars here or there.
It will probably be burnt at the end of it.
Correct. Yeah. And that's my biggest fear in that sense. Like, am I just doing the planet more of a service by just throwing it in the garbage, or giving it that last chance to be utilized by somebody else and then eventually thrown in the garbage?
There are new startups that are doing recycled clothing, that they actually take all the clothes and they put it through a machine and they get it to be a fiber again, and then they recycle it to a new clothing. That process takes like 3 days to make a new garment out of something. But it's a really long process, because if you have accessories on that garment, like buttons and zippers, you need to extract them and then just take the actual fabric. So I think the more of those that will be around, it will be super helpful for the industry, because there's so much waste going on. They're saying that like every second that we breathe, there's a truck filled with clothes getting burnt or thrown to waste, or thrown above the airs of Africa, and no one has anything to do with those clothing. We're not doing anything with them. We're just keeping to manufacture more and more to increase capital of those huge bombastic companies.
Yeah, and the problem is too, the way our business and our accounting is measured, right? They get to write all that off. And so if they produce more and they didn't have the season that they wanted in particular, it's a wash easier, right? Not only did they lose the money from the production side of things, and maybe they didn't hit the revenue numbers that they made, and the cost of goods sold was higher than that, but to make sure they bump it up, they can write off all of that stuff either through donations or through just like getting rid of it to pay for that. To
it
really
doesn't get into the books
Well, it does, because in a sense
they don't look at it. Everything that's not being utilized in some way for the fashion companies and sits in a warehouse and then it goes to waste, they just write it off. They don't look at it as something that happened within the company.
Right. What I'm saying though is that the way our accounting systems are structured is it gives them more of an advantage to keep doing what they do, because there's no, let's say like you got a penalty for overproducing something that wasn't bought. You know what I mean? Like, you would think that the behavior of those corporations would change, because it would be more, instead of a just-in-time overproducing on a cycle of clothing, they would have to really define a little bit more, and let's say shrink down their volume of production to be able to create the demand even more. And if something is popular, then they can go back and make more of it, that way people want, in a 2 to 3 week cycle after the initial rollout goes, as opposed to, let's say, making 10,000 of the shirts that 10,000 is small, but let's say like 100,000 shirts for Israel, for the shirt that you're wearing, right? You look at the population density and everything else, the likelihood of you selling all those. There's a lot of like math involved in the game, and as far as like what's trendy, what's not. And they do a lot of research on that, but there's no incentive for them not to just produce a bunch of it, and just leave it there.
You've just touched the core of fast fashion, because fast fashion means that I don't produce for my clients. I'm just producing to produce. I'm just putting out there clothes that are in standardized sizing. I put out those quantities based on last year's revenue or last year's sales. And I don't care what's going on the planet. I just continue to produce them. And not necessarily people will actually use them. And we know that they get thrown every year and no one uses that. So your idea is great. And if someone would actually legislate it, it will be amazing. Not to produce as much as society doesn't need. Let's start producing things and understanding that the raw material is limited, and we need to use it and to utilize it for good things. If I use 10,000 liters of water for one pair of jeans, something is wrong here.
Right.
We need that water. We need that water for something else, and not for those excessive pairs of jeans wandering the world.
Yeah. The problem is, at least in the US, we have an issue with so much lobbying going on for companies to the people that are supposed to. I look at government as like the referee. But when you have somebody that you're going against that literally has money sticking in a pocket of a referee,
the referee is biased.
The referee is not in your favor, even if he might agree with you.
Yeah.
Like, it's very hard to be a referee in that sense when somebody else is telling you which way to vote or which way to do something, right?
Just take, for example, the last COP, the climate change conference. They have reached to an understanding, a crucial understanding, that we are in a climate crisis and we need to take actions right now, not yesterday, not tomorrow. Right now, we need to take actions by 2030. Because if we don't take those actions by 2030, at 2050, everything's going to be changed and it's unreversible. This planet has gone out of balance, and after that, it's unrectifiable. And we need to take actions now. And after all those conclusions, we still don't see real actions being implemented within those companies, within those governments, within those industries, the oil industry, the fashion industry, the agriculture industry. And that is strange, because you look at it and you think, really, is that all there is? It's just capitalism, and we're gonna burn down this planet until, Elon Musk says we're going to Mars. What are we doing?
I mean, I agree with you, but I don't think our leadership has the backbone to to make a really significant change like that when other people that are running the show, so to speak, at these high levels don't want change to happen, regardless of like what we define change to mean to us, right? Like I was getting in a heated debate with somebody on text, you know, in a sense of this place is obviously very polarizing in certain respects, like Israel, meaning in one way or another to many people, right? For whatever reason, right? But I try my best to define places and differentiate governments from people, because we know around the world, generally, the government does not resemble the people.
Yeah.
Or only
the agendas are not aligned between governments and humans.
Exactly. And so with that, we need to do a better job of holding ourselves accountable to ensure that we elect officials, and a lot of places have a lot of issues right now. But in a sense, to get them on record to talk about this and have the journalistic integrity to be able to get this out there in a sense of like, this is an issue for us. Yes, there is COVID. Yes, there is a lot of people that are losing their jobs and their businesses left and right, right? But you're not listening in a sense of like, there will not be a market if the people don't have what they need in the same way. And
Exactly.
If you are polluting the world in the way that you've continued to do for the last 100+ years or so, that and who knows, right? Like we might end up having to, and we're already seeing it with like water being an issue in certain parts of the world already. I mean, Israel does an okay job of reusing water, probably one of the best in the world, but it's not an infinite resource in that same way. And so the same people that are handling all this around the world have to really put pressure on not only the people that are manufacturing it, but also the leadership and the legislation that needs to be implemented on top of everything of what we're doing in our lives and what we need help with, from medical care to retirement to whatever. People aren't going to be around to see the differences if you don't actually hold the people that we elect accountable in that way. So like, for example, here in Israel, I would say each political party should have kind of an official statement on not only climate change, but some kind of manufacturing standards even within the country here, and having a certain level of efficiency and being open to being audited, you know, and I don't particularly care for it, but not particularly government, but maybe even a third party to show that they are following the rules. They are doing what they need to do in the best way possible to help not only make money and create jobs and other things that come from running a manufacturing business in that way, but also providing the reassurance to the people that are utilizing their products that we are with you, we understand you, and we want to succeed in not only in business, but creating an ecosystem of trust within the things that you wear and how we live our lives.
Exactly. I think that what we don't understand is we're not polluting Earth. We're polluting ourselves. Mm-hmm. And we're polluting our own future. We're polluting everything that we want to achieve for our future. Like if you think of your kids or your future kids that wants to live here, if we continue in this manner, everyone's gonna be sick around here, which is pretty much happening right now.
Yeah,
everyone's sick around. This is the influence of what we've been doing on this planet. It's like we didn't understand that by cluttering and contaminating the world, we're going to be in an unreversible situation where we cannot hold it on this planet anymore. There is this story that I'm reminded right now of this chef that wanted to help this tribe in the Amazon. So he brought them food. And the food was packed with plastics, of course. Mm-hmm. And he kept bringing it to them. And they would just put the plastics, laid around.
Because they don't know any better.
Yeah, exactly. They just put it all around them. And he came back and he saw that. And he was mad. He was mad, like, why are they cluttering the whole space, contaminating everything, not throwing it away?
Yeah.
And they didn't know, like, if they have a banana and they put a peel on the side, it goes to the soil, and it's all good. But then he brought them a new product that doesn't meet the agenda of this planet. And that means that everything we have been creating up until now, since the Industrial Revolution, is not well for our organic earth. And we cannot continue to go through those methods again. Like, we cannot continue doing the same processes and expecting something to change. We need to change how we do everything. We need to change how we create things. We need to understand that the creation of something needs to have a complete ending of going back to the soil, just like us as human beings.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned about the Amazon. Somebody told me the exact same story about the Bedouin here, and like you said, they live off the earth. They don't know about the ramifications of, like, littering, for example, and so you see it in their areas, in the villages that they live in the Negev, and there's a bunch of trash everywhere, and they had to be educated on, like, hey, this takes forever to frickin' decompose and all that stuff. It's not like eating something and throwing it on the ground.
It's not a knowledge you're born with,
right?
Like, to understand that something is contaminating or something is not good for you.
So what they've done is kind of cool. I'll see if I can get some pictures to upload it. But there's a Israeli company, and what ends up happening is that you put in plastic in this can, and then you leave it, and it slowly creates petrol again.
Yeah,
it's crazy. So they have this big can, like probably the size of this table that we're sitting at right here, maybe about 6 to 8 feet long, and a big cylinder thing. And they dump the right kind of plastics, the white, green, whatever, like from soda bottles and things like that. They dump it in there, and slowly but surely it produces, in a closed environment, it starts to produce gas that they can put in their four-wheelers and other things that they use. It's insane. Like, I never thought that you could do that fast. And this company is trying to set up stuff all along the Negev in that way to recycle and create small amounts of gas back for the people of the Negev. I'll put the link in the description so people can check it out. But really cool company. So you're starting to see, from a technological standpoint, that people are really taking a stand and wanting to contribute back in some way.
I think we can get really creative in new ways of utilizing everything that we produce and that we own in this world. We just need to get our minds out of the frame that we were in up until now, and understand at this point in time what we can do to actually use things and release them to the earth in a sustainable way.
No, I totally agree. I think you can always do a little bit better job in that. And it's funny because obviously we've known each other for a while, but we both grew up we didn't grow up in the cities, like I grew up close to, like in Fulda is where I'm from in Germany, where my family's from. And we grew up on a farm. And so we have a kind of a weird symbiotic relationship with the land and how things are being processed and how you utilize things in a different way. And it was really unique to see that growing up in that same way. And so I'll spill the beans. Mai is from the Galilee, and she's from Tiberias.
I was born next to the Sea of Galilee. I used to eat fish from the lake and bread, which was like the common thing that you eat there, because this is what the local produce allows you. And that was the best, because you can taste the authenticity of good local produce that you have around you. And if I ship blueberries from a certain area in Europe, it's not the same. It doesn't have the same value, and it makes the whole world just go around on logistics and transporting all of those. So I think in some way we can go back and we go forward with understanding of what we need can be around us, and what is not around us we can have in a very controlled portion in our life.
Yeah, and you see the trends all the time. People buying more locally sustained food, clothing, things of that nature, that we know that we can actually talk to the person that produced that particular thing. And it's nice to have that. I think we forget that relationship sometimes. So I'm really happy, like when I go to a market and let's say like somebody made strawberry jam, or what have you, that
from the strawberries in his backyard,
right? And
his wife whipped it up, the whole
right,
the whole process. It's
really, really nice, and that's what
or him.
Yeah. Or him and him.
Yeah, or him and him, exactly.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I in light of everything we've talked about, we kind of been all over the place in regards to the fashion industry, the history of it, some of the macro changes that have been going on. Let's leave on a high note. Let's leave on some hope, and what you see, positive trends in the market and in the industry, and then what an individual can do to help be a part of that process of pushing further sustainability in the world. And then obviously from a local level all the way up to a strategic macro level.
I agree. There should be a change, a core change in our consumption. Yes, companies will keep infusing it to us and trying to push all those products with super intelligent algorithms that sometimes I feel like they can read my mind and they show me what I need to see, and it's freaking me out a little bit.
Yeah.
But you need to like step back for a minute and ask yourself, is this something I really want? Not necessarily.
Yeah, I think a little bit of patience goes a long way when it comes to consumption. And we're not saying like don't enjoy working hard, busting your butt, and being able to buy things that you really like and want. I think Mai and I probably are in agreement where we're just saying like maybe take a little bit of a second to maybe go from instant gratification to delayed gratification. Like if it's a knockoff of some kind in like a fast fashion world or something in that sense, and we know that obviously
you're gonna be pissed later.
Yeah.
After you buy it.
and then go from that to a delayed gratification of maybe having like a savings plan of some kind and getting the thing that you really want instead of buying some half-ass knockoff of the exact same thing, and feel good about that you earned it, and you know that generally you're probably going to keep that for a way longer time. And if it's some of these kind of I would say heirlooms, like family heirlooms, I look at that in a big way as well. I just think it's really cool. I'll give you an example of that. Like my grandfather died in Germany in like 2005. Just suddenly he just died in his sleep. Nobody really knew why or anything else. And
that's a good way to go.
Yeah. But the one thing I don't really have too many things from the old country in that sense, but what I do have, I have his old harmonica from like 1930s.
Amazing.
And I have it, and I don't know how to play it. I probably should learn how to play that a little bit more, but it's actually probably one of my more prized possessions.
Sounds amazing.
So if you hear a really horrible Steven Tyler impersonator in Denver playing on the streets with his harmonica, maybe it might be me. But, you know, in that sense, right? Like those things matter and those things are worth so much, you know? And I think when you think about the things that matter most, I think the life cycle of something doesn't have to end with you. It could end with the next person. So think about that before you purchase something the next time, where the quality of that product could sustain a lifetime, you know, and give it to somebody else that's in a meaningful way.
There's a saying, infinite patience brings to immediate results.
I could see that.
So that is something I recommend to everyone listening.
And then for anybody else that is interested in learning more about some of the stuff that you do, or some more information on the fashion industry, do you have anything that you recommend online or that you're reading or anything else that people can look at?
A lot, yes.
Do we want to just create a list?
It's a whole new podcast for that.
So let's do this. Let's talk about the book you've been reading, and then whatever else is left, and we'll create some links on like stuff for people to buy, to go check out.
Yeah, so first of all, I would recommend watching some of the speeches that were on the last COP26. Watch Greta, watch David Attenborough, watch A Life on Our Planet, which really explains how we used to be in the 1900s. We used to be like 2 billion people on this planet. Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of natural resources. And these days, we have like less than 40% natural resources on this planet. And we're 8 billion people here. So a lot of change. The balance has changed. I can also recommend a book that was released just now in June 21, which is called The Life and Death of a Garment, which pretty much follows a pair of jeans throughout the cycle of from growing the cotton until it gets sold in the stores. It's a good book to understand the business point of view of how you manufacture garments, and it can relate to all supply chain businesses to understand all the work that is needed to get to that one piece of garment that you buy.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, so we'll put up a decent list on, the websites and everything else like that, so people can take a look at some of the literature that's out there on that stuff, to educate yourself on what you're buying, like the process of that, and ultimately what kind of ramifications that it has on not only locally, but in a global sense. So awesome. Well, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Did not know I could talk 2 hours strictly about fashion, but I think I did okay. I held my own. I knew a little bit.
I feel we haven't even started to cover all the things that are related to this.
Well, maybe if we get some feedback and stuff and what people want to know a little bit more about it, I'm sure that we could probably have you on in a different sense and kind of seeing some of the changes, maybe from a legislation standpoint, from an industry standpoint, that you could provide updates on that, maybe in a shorter version, or get down into the nitty gritty, depending on what people are into. But I think it's a great start, and I appreciate it so much that you were here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The show is produced by myself, Ben, out of Denver, Colorado. Be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you consume the content. Audio versions are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Amazon, and a ton of others. As far as the full shows go and clips of the show, YouTube is the best place to view it. Instagram would be another one to see the clips. Big shout out to Mike Xavier, a hip-hop artist based out of Vegas and LA, who allow us to use his music for the show. He also produces a show called Hip Hop and Poetry, owns Renowned Photos, and check his music out and anything else that he's got going on in Vegas or online and social media as well. One last thing, if you know someone interesting that you think would bring value to the audience in some way, by all means, email me or get in touch via social media, and I would love to hear your thoughts on who would be one of those type of people. Thanks so much, and look forward to continuing to produce for you guys.